The first part of the 19th century was dominated by Romanticism, which was a philosophical, literary, musical, and artistic movement. Romanticism stressed variety, creativity, and the expressive imagination of the artist, or the poet, or the composer, someone like Ludwig van Beethoven. In painting, the Romantic approach privileged a vast range of human responses to nature, to events, to activities. Expressiveness and imagination were the key words, and audiences increasingly grew accustomed to, and therefore expected, dramatic pictures that thrilled them and engaged their passions or aroused their tenderest sympathies. Let's look at two very different examples. The first is called Monk by the Sea, painted by the German artist Caspar David Friedrich around 1810. Most of what the artist has depicted is a landscape of ocean, shore, and sky with long horizon lines and billowy masses of dense, dark clouds. In the center, there is a very tiny figure, the monk, who stands alone on the beach and contemplates the majesty of nature and perhaps God. For anyone who has ever stood looking out at the ocean, amazed by its size, its sounds, its unceasing movement, the painting is a reminder of how small we are in this universe and how deeply indebted we are to nature, which we can harness at times but never completely control. This is a Romantic approach to a very human sensation, and the artist made personal and dramatic by using only one small figure imposed against a huge landscape, so the painting mirrored an experience. Most Romantic paintings were highly narrative. They could depict a very personal story, like Monk by the Sea, but artists also used stories from ancient or contemporary history or literature, making changes or alterations to increase their dramatic appeal. Let's look at Theodore Géricault's Raft of the Medusa from 1819, which depicted the horrific survival experience of French passengers abandoned by the captain of their ship and left to float on a raft. The event received widespread news coverage, and many people shared the young artist's anger that an aristocratic French captain would save his own life and leave his passengers at risk. Géricault made the painting a couple of years later. So the composition is imaginative and creative, but not an accurate document of his survivors. His beautifully muscled bodies, some of which drift into the water, look nothing like the scrawny survivors, and there is no evidence that they ever formed a human pyramid. But that wasn't his goal. Instead, he wanted to inspire the audience with a painting that conveyed anguish, hope, and heroism. For that reason, he selected the most dramatic moment of their well-known story, the moment when they had spotted a ship in the far distance, but didn't think they had been seen. It was the most hopeful and the most despondent moment, and that made it the most romantic. Literally anything could be a romantic subject. The English artist J.M.W. Turner painted Rain, Steam, and Speed, the Great Western Railway, in 1844 to help communicate his own fascination with railway travel. Railroads were a fairly new invention, and the sensation of traveling so quickly, watching the landscape whoosh by, getting from one place to another in iron cars that rattled and spewed steam was a new experience for everyone, and far different than walking, or riding a horse, or traveling by carriage. Turner wrote about opening the train window and sticking his head out to experience the sensation of moving so quickly, and that is what he tried to convey in the painting. Many Romantic paintings were dramatic like these, but others depicted feelings of contentment and nostalgia. John Constable's famous landscapes of rural England demonstrated his love of the country and the country life, as well as his interest in science and meteorology, the newly developed science of cloud studies and weather prediction. Constable became famous for landscapes that depicted real places with real weather, like that you see in Haywain from 1821. He made countless small oil sketches outside of clouds in order to paint the correct kind of believable skies for the landscapes. True, he sugar-coated rural life, making it seem as though the peasants were happy and contented living on the land, often his land, since he was also a wealthy landowner. But the buyers for his works didn't mind. They were wealthy too, and quite content to buy new pictures that validated their status and their lands.